You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Buckminster Fuller. This is Citadelium, episode 10, and I'm your host, Yuri Degaya. Today I'd like to talk about digital citadels. And as you may know, I have already described what the digital citadel is in one of my articles titled The Way of the Digital Citadel at thegaya.co. And in this episode, I just want to expand a little bit on the concept and explain a little bit how I see the future pan out probably in the next 5-10 years and why I'm pretty excited about the concept. So let's start first with kind of the definition or a broader definition of this digital citadel. And before we do that, I think it's important to learn the distinction between a regular online community and an actual digital citadel. Some people think that it's pretty much the same thing, and of course I'm not here to impose any definition on anybody, so a citadel is very broad term and anybody can adopt whatever definition they want, but I would like to kind of make sure that people understand that where I come from is more of a broader definition. It has to do with building something that hasn't been built before or has been maybe attempted but failed. So with online communities, let's see what defines online communities. I think the main principle here is that first of all, they can be large and small, and as you may know, there are quite a few international online communities out there, and usually these communities are based on some narrowly defined principles or interests. So literally, online communities are interest groups, and they can be religious communities, they can be groups of gamers, there can be book clubs, athlete groups, and even furries and whatnot. So essentially, you like chess, you like playing chess, and there's a bunch of other people in your country or in your city or even internationally who like to play chess as well. You go ahead and you pick a chat room, and suddenly you have a community. And sometimes these communities exist for years and years, and people know each other for quite a while, and they even meet offline in the real world to discuss other things at the same time, and maybe create their own chess clubs in the physical world. So things like this exist, and like I said, this is pretty narrowly defined, right? So it is based on principles or interests. So what I want to say here is that these communities are not really organized on a broader scale. So these people come to that community, to that online platform for a specific purpose, for a specific reason. So sometimes, of course, these communities can have a kind of a larger scope, and this would include some religious communities who essentially get together based on the shared values of their religion, and they can coexist basically by sharing these values and also doing a lot of other things together. And some of them they get together offline and organize these communities, and even live together physically in villages or little towns, and they already have a bit more, I would say, features of an actual physical citadel. However, these are normally located within existing countries, within existing nation states, of course. So a great example would be the Amish community. And the Amish community is originally from Germany, but is quite popular or quite quite known in the United States as well. So it's a religious community, a Christian community that pretty much is quite independent and lives by its own standards, its own rules. They have their own markets. They have their own hierarchy with the elders at the top of the hierarchy. And I think if you remember anything about Amish, it's the fact that they are a bit anti-technology, and they literally have this technology committee which consists of the elders of the village that essentially decide which technologies are allowed or not allowed in the community. And for example, they rarely have things like mobile phones or even cars. A lot of the time, you can see them ride horses still. But these things exist. But like I said, these communities are usually peaceful. They are non-threatening to the state. So the state allows them to exist because they just live their own life, and they don't threaten the state in terms of wanting to become sovereign, for example. Another example of a community whose history is not as good as the Amish, and in which things went actually sour is a religious sect or community in Waco, Texas, that became famous in 1993 when unfortunately a lot of law enforcement decided to go into that community and investigate a claim that there was lots of basically stockpiles of illegal weapons there, and obviously such a reason is enough for the state to interfere. And unfortunately, a fight ensued, and 10 people died of gunshot wounds, and 75 more people of the compound, including children and women, died in the fire that ensued as well. So things like this exist, and as we can see, being inside a state physically is always a bet, because you either have to be extremely low profile and just or extremely peaceful, so that the state doesn't really care about you because you don't pose any threat to the sovereignty of the state. So this is a quick overview of online communities and offline communities as well. So in terms of online communities, these religious communities exist online, purely online as well, and sometimes they just gather in the physical space to meet, but most of the time they just meet online on chat platforms, instant messengers, things like Discord and whatnot. And now let's switch to some concept of digital countries or digital citadels, so I can explain to you how they differ from actual online communities, and how I think there will be the way of the future, and something that we should aspire to. A digital country, digital citadel, a digital nation state. Is it possible at all? Well, first of all, I think we should go to Wikipedia and actually see the definition for the nation state or a sovereign state, and see if it is possible to create such a thing in the digital realm. A sovereign state in international law is a political entity that is represented by one centralized government that has sovereignty over a geographic area. International law defines sovereign states as having a permanent population, defined territory, one government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other sovereign states. It is also normally understood that a sovereign state is neither dependent nor subjected to any other power or state. According to the declarative theory of statehood, a sovereign state can exist without being recognized by other sovereign states. Unrecognized states will often find it difficult to exercise full treaty-making powers, or engage in diplomatic relations with other sovereign states. So, what are the takeaways from this definition on Wikipedia? I think the main takeaways are the following. First of all, a sovereign state is not dependent on any other state. And of course, in today's world, we can see how a lot of countries already depend on other states. In case of central banking, for example, a lot of local currencies in the world depend fully on the reserve currency, which is the U.S. dollar. So you could kind of extrapolate that those countries actually depend on the United States and are not completely sovereign. The same thing happened in the European Union right now, where the previously sovereign countries stopped being sovereign essentially and started depending on the centralized body in the European Union, and their monetary policy now fully depends on the ECB, the European Central Bank. So, in theory, an actual sovereign state does not depend on any other state. It is fully independent, it's fully sovereign, and it can do as it wishes. The second takeaway from here is that a sovereign state can exist without being recognized by other sovereign states. And I think it's very important because, well, if you could only exist with recognition from other sovereign states, obviously this creates a situation in which other sovereign states just, create a mafia, essentially a cartel, and they just decide who gets to be or not to be a sovereign state. Again, this is all theory, and in practice, most likely, in a lot of cases, it is actually the way that I just described. And a lot of the time is if you try, to take some kind of a no man's land, of which there's just a few pieces left on the whole planet, or a piece of land that belongs maybe to another country, and declare yourself a sovereign state, you'll see a lot of resistance from other states. Most likely they will laugh at you and not take you seriously, or they will engage in military conflict right away and wipe you out. This is in practical terms still the case. But again, we're also interested in theory here, so you do not have to be recognized by other sovereign states to be a sovereign state. Now, what is the problem with this definition on Wikipedia? I see a couple of problems here, and my main concern is that there is a requirement for territory or for a piece of land for sovereign state. I think that this requirement is actually false, and to prove that this requirement is false, we only need one example in the whole world that essentially disproves this. And such an example exists, and that example is the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. If you haven't heard about it, here's the definition. The Sovereign Military Order of Malta, commonly known as the Order of Malta, Malta Order, or Knights of Malta, is a Catholic lay religious order, traditionally of military, chivalric, and noble nature. Though it possesses no territory, the order is a sovereign entity of international law, enjoys permanent observer status at the United Nations, and maintains diplomatic relations with many countries. To recap, this is an order, or essentially a community, that has been recognized internationally as sovereign. So essentially, it is a sovereign country that has no territory, and they are recognized by many other countries and are even part of the United Nations. As a matter of fact, they issue their own passports, so you probably cannot get, but some of the members, they have actual passports issued by the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, with which they can travel to multiple places. And having no territory doesn't mean that they don't have any physical presence anywhere. Most notably, they are represented in some in some places in Malta, and I believe their headquarters is in Italy, in Rome. So they do own some buildings and some plots of land here and there, but those plots of land are not independent territories. They're still more like part of the countries where they are located. But at the end of the day, this example disproves Wikipedia's definition of a nation state, of a sovereign state, that the state has to have a territory. The sovereign military order of Malta clearly does not, and it is considered a sovereign state, which is all we need here. So, what do we see with sovereign states? As opposed to an interest based group, a sovereign state is actually more multifaceted. Obviously, it has political life, both internal and external. It has a business life with internal and external markets. It has some kind of a form of defense, usually represented by its military force. Normally, it has the same culture, it has the same traditions or even religions, and of course, a lot of the time, at least what is claimed in theory, is that it exists for the protection of its citizens. So this is what we normally understand under a sovereign state. So what I'm trying to convey here is that we can adopt the idea of a sovereign state to digital citadels, essentially create a digital state that is also sovereign, that has many of the features of actual physical sovereign states. And the example with the Order of Malta is very, very good because I think something like this can be recreated and recreated many more times in the digital realm, obviously. And when the citizens of such a citadel have to meet, obviously they meet in the physical space, but normally all interactions happen digitally, and citizens can be dispersed around the world. So we want to adopt this idea of sovereign state to digital citadels, and I think it would be great if there were multiple such citadels around the world, because first of all, this will create a competition on the open market, and as I mentioned before, and as Titus Gebel calls it, it is the market of living together that will be growing. And if we can start in the digital realm, I think it will help bootstrap this market, because obviously it has a much lower cost. It's much easier to start. All you have to do is to have dedication and a few individuals who are on the same page. That's all you need, literally. So I think multiple such attempts around the world will create such a competition, but also cooperation, because just like some countries are specialize on certain things, like some countries specialize on raw resource extraction, while others specialize on high-tech development, and they can trade with each other these things. Digital citadels and around the world can also cooperate in different fields. One citadel can be full of programmers. The other one can be full of other people with lots of manual kind of types of work, and they can exchange resources or trade resources with each other. So this could be really great to see. And like I said, there is no central planning here. I would really hope that the market solves the whole problem of how these citadels cooperate and compete with each other. Now, an interesting idea is that a lot of these citadels, of course, will be based on the Bitcoin standard, because I'm a Bitcoiner myself. I know a lot of Bitcoiners, and I preach to them quite a bit, and they preach to me too. So I think a lot of these citadels and digital sovereign states will be funded by Bitcoiners. But think of the implications of this long term. For example, many rich Bitcoiners collectively will be a lot richer than today's nation states. Than some of today's nation states. I don't think it's an understatement because, you know, like there are already individuals in this world, some billionaires who are richer than some of the nation states, like island states or some African or Asian states. They are literally richer than whole countries. So there will be a lot of rich Bitcoiners as well in the future who will be richer than nation states. What does that really mean? What does that imply? Well, that implies that these Bitcoiners, especially those who are kind of on the same page and share the same vision for how they want to see the world develop, they will put their resources to work and they will put them to organizing something, maybe something that I described, that these digital citadels or anything else. So there will be all kinds of projects out there. There's a bunch of islands for sale there that they can start working on. They can work within their countries by funding, maybe political parties, or they can work outside. Some may want to go to space. Others may want to explore the ocean and build huge seasteads. There's just so many possibilities, but the biggest point that I want to make here is that these people will be independent. They will not be told what to do, and obviously the parasites at the top of this global hierarchy will not like it. They will fight it with all they can. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is unconfiscatable, uncensorable, and good luck with that. So it has great implications for the future. At the same time, some citadels may literally impose some form of tax or a member contribution or service fees to fund the citadels. And, you may be against it because, well, we are fighting against statism here, so why are you talking about taxes? Well, I'm not talking about taxes in their usual way here. I'm talking about voluntary contributions or literally service fees, the same way that you pay for Netflix. Because if you remember with the Citadel, if you don't like it, you just leave. You vote with your feet, and there is nothing that can stop you. And what we want to achieve at the end of the day is a world of tens of thousands of citadels, tens of thousands of microstates like Liechtenstein and Singapore and Hong Kong, and this is the goal. And starting a digital citadel is just a step towards that goal. But obviously, these projects have to be funded somehow. Some of them will be funded with investor money, others personally by Bitcoiners who actually organize these projects, and yet others will be crowdfunded. And as much as we have suffered in the past several years with these crowdfunding scams, yeah, I'm talking about ICOs and shitcoins and stuff like that. Crowdfunding itself as a concept is not something bad, right? If there is a good person with a good vision who actually wants to make something happen, and he sells the idea to the masses, and the masses fund him, I would support such an initiative. Go ahead and do it. There's nothing wrong with it. So this is how I think we can adopt an idea of a sovereign state towards a digital citadel. And here's what happens when such digital citadels start popping up all over the world. If we start a digital citadel, we can claim that we are sovereign. Remember that a sovereign nation state does not need the approval of other sovereign states to be sovereign, right? In the physical world, it creates restrictions because, well, you cannot establish diplomatic relationships if no one recognizes you, or you cannot travel, like issue your own passport and just say, hey, I'm from Asgardia and I want to, I want to travel to France. Here's my passport. France doesn't recognize Asgardia yet, obviously, so there's no way you can travel with such a passport. But in the digital realm, everything is a lot more flexible. So if I create a sovereign state and I claim to be sovereign, and then someone else creates a sovereign state, we can recognize each other as sovereign. And that is very important because if there is more and more initiatives like this all over the world, with more sovereign digital citadels recognizing each other, then and they are also funded by rich Bitcoiners. Imagine what happens when a bunch of these a bunch of these digital citadels become very wealthy, right? If they include a lot of wealthy Bitcoiners, if they are funded, if they have all kinds of things going on that usually go on with the actual physical nation states, such as, they have their own internal political life, they can have their own business life and purely digital businesses, which trade with each other internally and also externally with external worlds, because there's obviously no boundaries on the internet. They may even have their own defense systems. They may engage private contractors, military contractors, and stuff like that for the protection of their own members. They may share their own culture, they may share a religion, they may share traditions, and they may share some kind of form of money or something else if they don't like Bitcoin, which is of course a very bad idea. You just have to go with Bitcoin. But what I'm saying here is that this is not unrealistic, and it is very well within our means, within our grasp, and especially Bitcoin goes up, a lot of Bitcoiners get richer and richer, and it is a massive wealth transfer and a massive political power transfer as well. So be on the lookout for this type of situation, and maybe if you really have the dedication, if you really have the guts, or you just want to make a difference, at least locally or internationally or on the level of your country, think about starting something like this. It's going to be very interesting. A lot of these will fail, some of them will succeed, but I think it will be a great experiment, and time will tell us what works and what doesn't work. We can only learn through practice, and because like I said before, it's good to philosophize and breed theories all day long, but at the end of the day what matters is practice. If you have knowledge that you don't put to practice, this is useless knowledge. Any piece of knowledge that you are collecting right now, reading through books, watching on your screen, it has to be applied at some point somewhere. It cannot be completely useless. So stop scrolling your Twitter feed for useless information, stop watching cat videos, and start learning about how to build citadels, and I'll see you on the other side. If you like this episode, please subscribe at thegaia.co, and until next time.